Good morning, New Eden. Today is June 16th, 2024, and this is the Federation Frontline Report. I'm your host, Frozen Fallout, and I've got my co-host today, Samson.
Good morning, New Eden. How y'all doing?
Doing good, and we've got a really special guest we're excited to have on here, Phantomite. How you doing, man?
Good evening, Europeans. I'm good, thank you.
Yeah, it's still midday here.
Yeah, it's
For me.
late night for you, huh? I always say good morning because whatever. It's just,
Well,
it's
it's
morning somewhere in Eve, right?
Well, no,
So.
it's not morning anymore. I feel like when we started the show, it was like 0-100 hours, but now it's 22. So maybe
Yeah,
something,
it switches all over the place.
some stupid shit that we call daylight savings time or something happened. I don't know.
I said that seemingly is impossible for every government in the world to abolish, even though there's not really any real people out there being like, no, we got to keep it. No, we're going to keep
Yeah,
it.
but
It's so
who
weird.
cares?
Nobody cares.
Nope.
Yeah.
Nobody cares.
I think there should just be
It
one
especially
world
messes
time,
with people like us who live in multiple time zones. Like
Yeah.
we talk to and hang out with people in multiple time zones.
I'm glad I play Eve because Eve gives me that, like, I know there's one time in Eve, it's the GMT, it's solid.
No,
This
it's
is what
Eve time.
It's Eve time, which doesn't have daylight savings, which is nice. So, but yeah, thank you for coming on, Phantomite. You've been all over the galaxy, been kicking ass. You've been living in Yvanger lately.
You've been a thorn in my side,
and
showing up in my home system and annoying me because I can't gate camp all the time anymore. I have to I can only gate camp at certain times, and yeah.
And then we are very concerned. We are very not concerned, but we're very aware of when you are on, so that we can't jump the gate camp when you're around, because you'll just drop a bunch of dreads on top of us.
Yeah.
Oh, dreads! That is a corp history hangover right there, isn't it?
But I'd like to kind of start off though, and just how did you get into EVE Online? When did you first start playing, and why? How'd you hear about this game?
Tell you what, I got my first job in 2000, and my first proper job in 2007, and I'd always been fascinated by the idea of MMOs as a kind of living, functioning economy and world to be in. And there's, even back then, it was apparent that there was no such thing really as an actual living world as EVE Online at the time.
Still isn't, as far as I know.
I might go as far to say that nobody has succeeded in that. Plenty of companies have tried to make games that are as player controlled or more so than EVE, but they just never get the critical mass of players, and then 6 months later they're gone.
Yeah, it's also hard to get it all on one server or one place for everybody to interact with each other. Like CCP has done a pretty good job of having, because they have multiple systems, that's where their multiple servers are, and it's kind of like, I mean, to a certain degree, living in a Mar is very different than living in Jeddah, and it's not like or if you're living out in 0.0.
We can travel. We can traverse the servers, right? So we can travel from one to the other. So essentially, it feels like everybody's in the same world.
Yeah, we're all in the same world. We're just not in the same grid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tie-dye we can attest to that with tie-dye, because it doesn't happen everywhere.
I'll tell you what, that's something about this game, right, is that, and I think that this is the same for any MMO that would require it to be a premium. This is a premium MMO. This is a subscription-based MMO, regardless of the fact that we have unlimited alpha usage of the game, and regardless of the fact that some people can choose to pay ISK for their subscription. It is nonetheless, it boils down to, this is a subscription-only game, and that is one of the last. That's basically the last way to have a sandbox game, is to have this sort of soft limit to stop people from just going nuts with 1,000 accounts. Is to have it be a premium subscription game. And I don't think that the world is primed to ever ever again launch a subscription-based MMO. Because people have very different expectations as to what they feel they should be paying for a game. And, you know, you see this in basically every single MMO that has launched since around the era of the smartphone, which is when people expected software to cost zero.
Yep. Gotcha games came out, and gotcha mechanics in
well, now MMOs. Instead of it costing zero, you just have a license and you don't actually own anything anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same. It's the same with EVE, basically. I mean, premium MMOs, subscription-based MMOs, are the original software as a service for consumers.
True.
Really, you know, and EVE is only functioning, and you know, some people might say it's flourishing, or at the very least is continuing steady.
It's profitable, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's profitable, and we have seen in the last 2 years upticks in subscribers again. You know, we're less than half of the PCU of, you know, 2014 or whenever it was, but nonetheless.
Well, it's because Eve is dying, or no, Eve is dead. Wait,
been dead for
one of those things.
Ever since I started playing in 2006, so
it's dead and buried. But it's EVE Online's critical mass that keeps people expecting that it's normal to pay for this one here. You know, I'm always going to be playing EVE Online, but I would love to see the world at large have premium MMOs that people were willing to pay for, because MMOs are where the best gaming stories are born.
100% agree. I mean, this is especially with EVE, because like I listened to Empires of Eve 2, you know, down the rabbit hole for EVE, you know, like podcasts and stuff like that, and a lot of the stories about the player stories. Like if you go into World of Warcraft and stuff, like a lot of the stories and stuff, there might be something about like a raid or something. You know, we all know Leroy Jenkins. You know, there's that special like story that happened there. You know, but it's really contained to like really quick events that have happened, or they're talking about the story or the new expansion that comes out that brings out new content, that has a new dungeon for you, and they talk about the dungeon, how to kill the dungeon, how best to do these. That's what a lot of the talk, I feel like, happens in a lot of other MMORPGs. Is there is a little bit of the player in it, but it's not a lot, to be honest, comparatively to EVE. EVE is like it's 90% player, and then a little bit about what EVE or what CCP did in order to influence what the players were doing. You know, with the release of a Titan, having
the main story being completely player driven is very unique to EVE, and it's a really big thing in EVE. And one of the things that I think that really makes things like EVE so prevalent is one, it's completely unique, as you mentioned already, Phantomite, that essentially, as far as MMOs are concerned, it is one of the most unique MMOs. And as far as I'm concerned, and this is just a small tangent, almost every other MMO is too easy now. I hate them. They're all cookie cutter. They're just the same thing over and over again, right? And it's too easy. There's no challenge. EVE always presents a challenge. It doesn't matter how long you've been playing the game. It doesn't matter how much money you have. Like, as they say, pay to lose in EVE. But the other thing that makes such a huge phenomenon is how far-reaching things can be, because when something happens in a game like EVE, it's covered by every news outlet. It's not just gaming news as outlets anymore. Like I've seen, I had like Forbes pop up with like, you know, another World War B or whatever the fuck, you know, is going on.
$400,000 worth of damage done. You know.
Yeah, because there's that really easy way to compute or calculate rather in-game money to real game money, that they're able to, people are just able to do that and report on that, whereas other games, you know, like WoW, like you said earlier, Leroy Jenkins was WoW, like, you're not supposed to be able to buy gold. Like that's not technically legal. So that's not something we do. I mean, there were definitely scandals that you would talk about stuff like that, and like EverQuest, where people were like duping things and selling gold, and I battled Chinese Adena farmers in Lineage 2. You know, like I've played so many MMOs in my history, and I've been addicted to MMOs, but Eve is the one that just beats them all.
Addicted.
So, I mean, I was gonna, I was trying to be nice,
but to bring us back on track here, you were saying that. So you, in 2007, you had, learned about this epic, crazy Eve Online and kind of drew you in. What was one of the first things that you started doing in Eve? Did you do the standard? I'm gonna go mine and get pissed off that this game sucks and then come back later.
I'll tell you what. EVE Online is such an odd game for me to play then and now. I'm not into RPGs at all, character building, things like that. And at the time, I play a lot of things like Factorio. Mm-hmm. I still occasionally go back and I play Open Transport Tycoon, which is based on a game from '94. It's a lot more of a beast of a product now, since a bunch of fans got a hold of it and turned it into an open source, massively expandable thing. So I joined this game, and I've told other people before, but first thing I knew that I was going to do was that I'm going to work to be the biggest controller of hauling and logistics in this game. I knew when I joined that I was going to be running a fleet of freighters. I was going to be running a corporation of people hauling, and then 2 days later I knew I was going to do PvP forever instead. It wasn't what I came here to do.
Because PvP is the best thing in Eve by far.
It is really unique. I think hauling in Eve is one of the most unique things, though, that is not really in a lot of other MMORPGs, because to move shit around in other MMORPGs,
and it's necessary. It's necessary for PvP too. Like you can't PvP if you don't haul your shit or have somebody haul it for you.
As you just got done blowing up somebody hauling their shit, didn't you?
Yeah. And got plenty of money off of him. And
all of us did.
Yeah. So I mean, there are often these tropes about people who, the three of us in this channel, PvP is 100% or at least 99% what we are aiming to do in this game, us in this channel here. And
absolutely,
the living universe, the unique living universe nature of this game means that the people who want to spend all of their time mining, who want to spend all of their time hauling, who want to spend all of their time missioning, who want to spend all of their time doing production of industry and things like that, they are just as valid things to play in EVE Online. And people like us often get pigeonholed into people thinking that PvPers hate PvEers. It works the other way. It works the other way. There's this kind of stereotype that everybody who's out there mining in 5 barges thinks that PvP should be banned, and that's not the case with a lot of them as well. It's quite it's complicated. We all need each other.
Yep. No, exactly. There are some things that people get pissed off about and whine and cry about and stuff like that, and there's definitely a loud voice
out there salt mining
of crying that happens. But I think overall, everybody who really sticks with EVE appreciates how much of a PvP game this is, and how much each PvP relies on PvE, and PvE to a certain degree relies on PvP. Like if there was no PvP in the game, then
we're the ones buying your shit.
All items would be worth 1 ISK in the end. Nothing's getting lost, and this is not a game where they come out with a new expansion and it's like, oh, here's a whole new set of items that you have to get this in the next 6 months, and then after 6 months we're going to release another expansion or a year or whatever, and then you're going to have to get a whole new set of new items. I'm flying in shit that I flew in when I first started this game. Now, some of them, there are some newer shit that did come out, but it's very slow. In 18 years, they've released, I don't know, I feel like handful of new PvP ships, basically. Like maybe like Navy versions of a few things here and there.
Recent ones I haven't even flown yet.
It's one way of looking at it, but at the same time, we may find that CCP's balancing of existing ships and modules leaves something to be desired. 7 years of the Munin, but when they do change ships, when they do modify ships and weapons and other modules, they are essentially these ships are new to us again.
Yes.
There was a time when the Zealot, it's not hugely used right now. It is used in some situations. There was, to begin with, a time when the Zealot was one of the worst ships in the game. It only had 4 turrets, and it felt like it. And Scorch was terrible ammunition. Then it got an extra turret, it got some extra fitting, and Scorch was buffed, and it became, for a number of years, one of the best ships in the game. It's a whole new ship to us.
And the Munin went getting from turrets to missiles, like completely changed the game. Like people log in and you see it on Reddit every once in a while. I just logged in. What the fuck happened to my Munin? I can't even fly it. Like I don't even have missile skills. What the fuck?
And you know what? When things like this change, it's always going to hurt somebody. But if it contributes to the overall better health of the game, then it is contributing largely even to the person who it hurt, because a better game for everyone is a better game for everyone, including the people who just lost something that they relied on.
Adapt or die, as they say. Adapt or die.
Hurting and being hurt is a huge part of EVE.
Yeah. You live and you learn. You pick up something new. Things get refreshed, and you learn a new actual piloting skill, not necessarily an in-game skill. You know what I mean? But
right, yeah. There's a lot of personal, like not having nothing to do with the game mechanics or skills or anything. Like personal skill is huge in this game, which is why it is one of those pay-to-lose games. I mean, after you've built up tons of experience, like a lot of us in this room here, we could dump hundreds of dollars into this game or thousands of dollars into this game, and it might help us a little bit with our PvP. But if you're starting off and you're like, I'm just going to spend $20,000 on this game, you'll find that you might lose that $20,000 real quick.
we see it though, don't we? You know, every now and then somebody in your corp will say, take a look at this guy on Z Killboard, and it'll be like a 3-month-old guy who is repeatedly losing like 20 billion ISK golems or something like that, right?
Yep.
Money
Shout out to Steve.
Oh, we love Steve. Steve, I hope you understand that in our alliance, in our corp, in Blue Canary, we do genuinely love you. We both love you and will always try and kill you when we see you. Because
that's how he was with us for a while. We killed him multiple times, and then I recruited him, and then he was with us for quite a while, and still being Steve. Like we were gonna mess with that.
We wanted Steve to be Steve, just part of our corp. You know, it's okay that our kill board has like a 20 billion ISK loss because he just wanted to go have fun. Like that's fine.
Yeah,
Steve is displaying the true spirit of somebody who is here to have fun, rather than somebody who's here to demand that everything be exactly the way that they think it should be, and demands that things be served to him on a platter or anything like that. You know,
I miss him on comms, man. He's a cool dude.
We got to get him back. We lost him because we went to the network and they had a little bit more.
We're not on the network anymore.
We're not in the network anymore.
He didn't like the strict. Yeah, you had to be the network. If you're gonna be a professional, if people are gonna pay you to kill people, you gotta fucking, you gotta tighten up your shit, right? Like that's. But we're not in the network anymore, Steve. Come back to us.
So what was some of the first PvP activities that you got into? What was the thing that made you go, fuck industry, this is where I want to be. I want to be in PvP land.
Well, on the face of it, it feels, and this is going to be, I imagine this will resonate with most people as to why they're still here, right? Is that on the face of it, I think about what was it that hooked me on PvP, and it's the social aspect. It was the being there with some people who you clicked with, and you would talk and you would laugh and you would make some jokes. I'm still friends with some of the people from those very first days. You know,
and by the
some
way,
of them
Steve is here,
still
so
around.
he just waved to us.
Hey, Steve.
Fucking love you, man.
I mean,
But yeah,
I knew he was listening.
One of the guys that I first joined up with, and was, you know, he had only been in the game a few months as well. We still play other games together, even today. And you know, it was in low sec, which is what I imagine sparked my preference for low sec PvP rather than null sec PvP. You know, I've done plenty of null sec as well, but it's the social aspect.
Yeah, I agree with that.
That's what really turns the PvP from being, in my mind, some of the best PvP in any game in the world into something that's really next level.
Yeah,
I don't know, man.
It's so awesome, and not just that the people that you fly with, the people you shoot, like you end up learning about them. You know, you recruit them. You can talk to them. You become like nemesises with each other, or you become frenemies. You know, like Lurk and Phantomite and like, you know, Corvus and Trip.
Corvus is
and
cool,
you know,
dude.
I fucking love these guys.
Frenemies.
Like it makes the game so much better, and it creates such a more vibrant, real feeling of community that exists. You know, it's just hard to get anywhere else. Like,
I don't know, man. Frozen, I get tired of you all the time.
Yeah, fuck you too.
Always flying with this fucker.
Coming over to my house and hanging out, you know.
I have lived with you for almost 2 weeks now, fully.
Yeah, so how long have you two guys, how long has your stretch living in this area been?
Yvangir? Or, yeah. Well, no, is Yvangir in Black Rise Frozen, or no?
Mm-hmm.
No, okay,
Yvangir's Essence.
Essence, okay, yeah, it's next door.
Well, it kind of it depends. So I'll start off here because my history in this area is kind of crazy. So I've been playing since about 2006. I did play in the beta for like a very short amount of time. When I looked around and I said, I don't know what the fuck to do with this game, because in the beta they literally just dropped you in a ship and was like, go. And it was like, there wasn't missions. There wasn't any, you know, you had to go like mine Veltspar to try and, you know, make some money somehow. But I had jumped around a little bit. You know, I'd been living in Essence and Old Man Star and Hain for my first like 3 or 4 months of 2006, early 2007. And then I went out to to Interstellar Alcoholic Conglomerate and pulled back eventually. So I did some 0.0 stuff for a little while, but I ended up, as soon as Faction Warfare came out, I like, that was the sign to me to come here and build up, because we had built up a corporation. There was like 6 or 7 of my buddies who were all playing at the same time during that time period. So I had tried to convince them to come into Faction Warfare because it just came out, and that seemed to be the place to try and build a PvP corporation. So I had made Mecha Enterprises Fleet, where we were Mecha Enterprises Group was our, the original group that we had, and I made a new corporation, Mecha Enterprises Fleet X Meta. And I had jumped into Faction Warfare pretty much immediately, and have been in and out of Faction Warfare. I ended up leaving Faction Warfare before X Meta went on to create Fed Up and do some really great stuff, when I had ended up going to Goons, which I got torn away from Faction Warfare basically because I went to parties. Like, the social stuff that you're talking about is like what really pulled me to Goons. Was Madison, Wisconsin had parties like every month. There was a party that was going on in Madison for Goons. You go hang out with Mintani, and you go hang out with, a bunch of people.
I almost got there. I tried, but the flights, they just kept getting delayed.
And then they had their biannual Goop party that they would do two parties a year. So I ended up coming over and leaving Faction Warfare for that. But in the end, Faction Warfare was the place that I could just undock and go murder something in my system. You know, it was very rare that you could find something like that in 0.0. And I would say that we came back, we rebuilt a lot of stuff and tried doing a lot of things with Golden Age Stories, was a corporation that I had run for a little while. And that's when I met Samson, and that's when I started creating the Federation Frontline Report. And that was, what, 4 years now? Has it been?
3.
It was 3 years that we've been doing the Federation Frontline.
No, it's about the same.
It's about much different. Yeah, because we clicked immediately, and I was like, "You're a podcaster. I podcast. Let's do a show together."
You were doing your previous podcast,
right? Crossing Darkness. I did World of Darkness.
Yeah, Crossing Darkness
stuff, but I had like a special.
You popped in that Facebook group and you said, "Hey, are there any other Eve players here?" And I said, "Yeah, I play Eve." And he's like, "You want to be on my show?" And I was like, "Yeah, cool. Yeah, I'll be on your show." And I'm a podcaster too. We did that. And then he said, you were like, let's just, you should go out with me, because like, I was like, I told you my stories in Eve. And at that point it was just, I was a spy in Null for a very short time. And then I came, I left that, went back to like low sec in like Amar, and just was like trying to do PvP on my own solo because I didn't have any friends. And after I left that corp, and I did a couple of things here and there, and then I started MTU hunting. It's a typical progression in low security and high security space. In high security space you can hunt MTUs to a degree. And then this happened with you, and you said come out with me, and I came out with you with an alt. I made an alt, or already had an alt. And we went and we killed some shit in like Nisua, Natoras area. We killed like a retriever, or I think it was a retriever, with just a couple of like shitty ships, like an Atron and I don't know what you were flying, but we didn't have that much.
Yeah,
we had enough for DPS. Shit. I mean, it could have been 2 Atrons, because Atrons with blasters still have a lot of DPS. That's It just takes a while to kill, but we caught that Coveter or Retriever, whatever it was. And the rest was history after that, because you taught me how to PvP. Like
there was the Notorious news that I was like, you can get on the news, dude, by hanging out in Notorious.
It was in Notorious, so we killed that mining barge in. It's just gonna change every time I say it, because I really don't remember. It could have been the other one. There's a couple other ones. It definitely wasn't a Hulk though. It was tier 1, I think. But and yeah, so we got on Notorious news with that, and then I became obsessed with getting on Notorious news, and you told me how to kill, and I started flying the Vengeance around in Natoras and Nisua back when you could bring it into smalls, regular small plexes, before the advance and stuff. And I started hunting bots and stuff, and I learned a lot of that, like how to do things, and started gate camping.
Became a better PvPer than me.
And no, I mean, I haven't quite gotten there yet, but I'm working on it.
I don't know. You're a better gate camper than me. Solo gate camper. I can't do. I mean, I can, but I'm just too lazy, and you're less lazy.
You're just
than
too
me,
lazy.
So.
You're too lazy. But there are, so like that. So anyways, yeah. So it's been a couple of years. That's about how long we've been doing it.
Yeah, we went into
PvP. Before that, my history was like basically like several rage quits. Long story short, several rage quits. But then after this, and we started doing it. But I will say this though, since Frozen mentioned gate camping, Don't Tackle Me. Shout out to Don't Tackle Me, Blue Canary. They've given me so much content. It's been a lot of fun. Like
forcing each other off the gates. And...
they'll gate camp. They'll gate camp the same gate, and I got them twice. Maybe 3 times, where I baited him into leaving like a Vigilant or an Ashimu behind, and just killing it with like a Varga or something stupid, like and then
we got to worry about
I definitely have a respect for Don't Tackle Me.
Don't
that?
Tackle Me is a hilarious person as well.
I love Don't Tackle
on comms as well as being.
We need to get. Can you convince him to come on to the show? I would love to have.
Yeah, I would love to have Don't Tackle Me on the show too. Yeah.
Hey, absolutely. you know where to find him as long as you can remember which one of them is the best one to
talk to
convo.
you say something in local first, and then you
say the context. The context here for anybody who doesn't know is that Don't Tackle Me will typically fly by himself. He'll fly 10 characters.
Yep.
Usually across several different ships, not like
two
all
of them
in a
or
tornado or something boring like that.
Eyes. Like 2 or 3 of them are eyes, so he knows where everything is. And then like 3 or 4 of them are Logi, and then like 2 of them are DPS, and 1 is E-War. Like it's a good time.
Very impressive.
So I baited him once with a Armageddon, Newtgeddon, and I tackled his Vigilant, and they started busting me up, like it was my ult. My ult was in a Newtgeddon, and when he got me about half armor, I undocked my Varger, and then everything just scatters.
Gotta get out. Fuck this shit.
But the Vigilant can't go anywhere.
Here to drop the dreads on this guy, so we gotta go.
So that's how, like you can get 1 ship or something like that. Because multi-boxing is hard, and I only do, like, if someone would say like true multi-boxing, I only it's duo. Really, because my third is always eyes, right? So it's not really, the eyes aren't really doing a whole lot in my opinion. So when you have
except for they're doing everything, because it's so important to have your eyes.
If we're talking,
True.
when we're talking about multi-boxing, I think it's fair to say that what we're really talking about is flying ships where you have to move them and use the modules on them.
It gets way more impressive when you have 5 ships that you need to like do button clicking on.
So I'm technically, not to disappoint anybody in chat, but I've only technically duo boxed by those strict rules, because the eyes are always just watching.
But to answer your question,
however, they are trained, and maybe it will happen someday.
Well, you've messed around a little bit, but to answer your question, I would say Yvangir, because we left, we were part of Nissawa Cartel for a little while, because I dropped like a station. I tried dropping a Athener or something like that in Nissawa, and I was just fucking around. It was just me and a buddy that were, this was before Samson, I think, joined us, and Relic was still around. We dropped a station, and with one of those, PvP is a social thing, because we dropped the station, Nissawa Cartel came and blew it up, and then they were like, why did you do that? And I was like, I was just seeing what would happen. I wanted to see who's here, who's protecting this space, if I could get an Athenor up or not. And they were like, well, just join us. You can put up as many Athenors as you want then. And they were buddies with Snuffed Out, so fuck Snuff. And
good luck if you want a structure anywhere within this range here.
Thank you, Benz, so much for the follow, Benzman.
At some point, technically, we had at some point we had diplomatic immunity.
Yeah, we were doing good with there's both the network. We had diplomatic immunity when we were part of Nissawa Cartel, and then the network until we left Nissawa Cartel, and of course we lost that, and then the network. There might have been some bills that might not have gotten paid, from my understanding.
I may or may not have taken control of a Snuff Athener and shot at my own ships. Maybe that may have happened. I'm not. But I can neither confirm nor deny that.
I would say in Yvangir we've probably been here for about 2.5 years, give or take. Because it was just
that was a really long time to answer that question.
Yeah,
Frozen.
But there's a lot of history that needs to come with that.
Yeah,
because I've been here, but not really. So
obviously during that 2.5 years, and I would imagine mostly since Uprising was released, Haid has, the area around Haid at least, so Wyvern and places like that, have it's had its action, but I think it's fair to say that the last sort of 6 months have really been where it has been peaked in this area for quite some time.
We're the new Tama. I mean, it's way fucking better to hang out here than in Tama these days.
It's a direct PvP. Result of the frontline system.
Yes.
Absolutely. All of that fighting.
Tama kind of died. There was two major things that killed Tama. One, the frontline system came out, and two, Snuff blew up all those structures that everybody had tons of shit in.
I think it's the other way around. I think it's one is Snuff blew up everything, and then two.
And then they put up their own shit, so...
So, rest in peace, Space Detroit.
Yeah.
It was good. Now, I haven't interacted much with Space Detroit's current replacement.
Me neither.
I can't. Does it not provide the same kind of?
I hear that it provides kind of the same kind of thing, but it's the wariness. It's like, oh, people were living in Tama for years and using Space Detroit for years, and then you blew it up, and it just de-incentivized anybody from. It doesn't matter that you put up a new structure. I feel like not only that, the front lines also helped with that, because as soon as front lines came out, we really couldn't dock in Tama anymore, and it was really hard to try and get involved in Tama and do anything in Tama, because they made it so, because before you could dock in, before front lines came out, you could dock in player-owned stations, but you couldn't dock in NPC stations. And then when front lines came out, they made it so that you couldn't dock in player-owned stations. So that kicked out all the Galente. So the Galente never were able to dock in Tama, except for some very rare times that we got it onto the front line.
Undoubtedly, the kicking of faction warfare players out of citadels in systems that they didn't have control over. Undoubtedly, that was a removal of a lot of action for some people.
Absolutely.
I do think it was necessary for a healthier faction warfare environment, though.
Oh yeah, no, it forced everybody into specific systems, and that's, where you can go fight now, and you can't farm outside. Like, if you want to go hunt farmers, you know where they are. Like, there's 5 systems to go find farmers in now, and if you want to go find PvP, you know where to go find it. You want to act like you're a farmer, which is what I'm not a big hunter. I don't go out and like try and go into plexes to kill people. I do it from time to time, but I love sitting in a plex and being like, come get me. Here's the Eat at Joe's sign, and we will, depending on what you bring, I'll either accept the fight or not,
And as somebody has, a phrase somebody has used before, as disgusting PvP gremlins like we are, if we're being real about it, we're not, if they're there, we'll shoot them, but we're not actually really interested in focusing our life on shooting farmers. Anyway, we want to fight people who want to fight
back. Yeah, that's my big thing.
Yeah, not anymore.
Kill the farmers just because they piss me off for existing.
That was a phase that I grew out of, Yeah, but also too, like I don't see, like, and maybe it's where we're at, but I don't see them nearly as much as I did, because back then, before they made the change in faction warfare, coercers, I think coercers were one of the main farming destroyers.
Coercers,
they were just rampant, and they would always come back. So it was like, why wouldn't I shoot it? If especially once I graduated from like flying around in plexes and hunting in plexes to just gate camping the Taurus Gate, they would just keep coming back. So like, not only would I have farmers coming in, blow them up, and then you would actually have I think it was a confessor, a decently fit confessor with a slightly blingy pod, just attack me on the gate when I had my Gnosises on there. And I was like, are you serious? They died really fast, and it was great. But
if you're sitting on a gate because you're camping it, and some like small ship like tackles you, then 95% of that time that means that there's a gang incoming.
Yep.
Yes. Yes. This guy was by himself, but absolutely. I remember Killer Rasta got me a few times. And also Bomber's Bar. I think Bomber's Bar dropped me several times. Of course, Snuff did.
Whatever has happened to Bomber's Bar? They were the other hot droppers. That was good. It was good having them around.
They're still around, but it's not as much. I still see their pings go out every once in a while because I'm part of a bunch of the NPISI.
Are they focusing nullsec these days?
I think so. I see their pings
enough.
every once in a while, but I don't. I do Spectre Fleet more often than not. So
yeah, Spectre.
And they've done some stuff like that, but yeah, Bomber's Bar. I do see their pings every once in a while because I'm subscribed to the NPSI. You know, like get a ping every single time that somebody puts out any kind of NPSI fleet, as long as they're part of the fun network and stuff like that. So, but yeah, so tell us a little bit about your PvP experience. What kind of stuff did you first get into, and what was some of the stuff that you said, like low sec was what you got into like first? Did you ever get out into 0.0 and experience that kind of action?
On a number of occasions. I've been in Pandemic Legion once
cool.
during during a period during their rise. I mean, I think that being part of a group during their rise is always the most fun part of being.
Is that when they were taking Fountain, or?
Honestly, I can't remember exactly which area we were doing. We were taking Pandemic Legion was doing a lot of work taking some of the north at the time, but they've done that more than once.
Okay, was that might have been with the Russians? Would be when they were working with the Russians fighting the Northern Coalition.
Okay.
And that was they were pretty badass back then.
The actual Northern Coalition when they were called Northern Coalition.
Right. Yeah. Mois Mihi and before the Declan Coalition and stuff like that. Yep. Yeah. So that sounds, because I just got done actually listening to Empires of Eve 2, which talks a lot about that the Russian war, where the Russians were able to get Pandemic Legion. They paid them 600 billion ISK to come over and join them for the operations, and really that's when Pandemic Legion shined really strong with the Hellcat fleet and the armor hacks and stuff like that they were able to throw out, where they wouldn't even lose a ship. So the Northern Coalition didn't even know what the enemy was flying, because they couldn't kill one of the ships to get a kill mail to know what it was. Like, so yeah, that sounds pretty intense, dude. Any cool stories you got from that?
Well, that first period in Pandemic Legion was during the sniper hack era, specifically the beam zealot era. They were largely glass cannons. They were shield tanked. It was an incredible time. I mean, I remember I had footage at the time of engaging dreadnoughts in roving groups of sniper hacks, things like that. Was part of them during, I believe, the final sort of routing of Band of Brothers from Delve at the time. I think I caught the tail end of that, just as a line member, but being part of something during its rise is a great time. Was also later on, a while later, part of Pandemic Legion at what I feel was their plateau as well, and it was a very, very different vibe at the time. But I think that's probably a commonality among lots of larger groups, is that when it's during their rise, it's incredible. When they're at their peak, when it's already there and they're not sort of going much beyond that, probably some signs of things not being as cool as they used to. But yeah, I've spent plenty of time in nullsec, in large fleet and small gang work, but I've always ended up back in low sec, which is low sec. One of my most important things that I like in Eve is close range combat.
Mm-hmm. Ideally, and 0.0 is very long range a lot of the times, and you can get some good close range in low sec though.
It is these days. The reason that a lot of things are close range, a long range fit in fleet combat, is partly a balanced issue with particularly cruiser-sized long-range weapons. I mean, I'm sure that it hasn't escaped you that, for example, we were talking about Prophecy Navy issues earlier. We beam fit those. We endeavor to close the distance so that we get into brawling range with them, but cruiser-sized long-range weapons are so wildly powerful. They do DPS that comes close to competing with close-range weapons, but with the flexibility of all the extra long range.
Yep, it's just the tracking issue that you have. But if you can get over that, which there's a lot of ways to get over the tracking issue.
But if you're 100 kilometers away,
tracking's not an issue. But if you are 1 kilometer away, tracking is an issue. But if they're triple webbed or 15 webs that are on them, then they're not
painted.
moving.
The thing is, if you're battle cruisers versus battle cruisers and your beam fit on yours, even at 5 kilometers, you're going to hit them. You're still going to hit them. They've got the signature. They've got the physical size that you're going to hit them anyway. It's something that people don't talk about very often is that there are these problems with long range weapons in fleet circumstances. Here is what I'm really talking about.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that I really want to lean on, as a sort of issue that I want CCP to look into and address. I think it's a kind of a kicking and screaming issue for a lot of people, is removing that flexibility but encouraging close range weapon usage again. That I really think is gonna benefit the game.
I would love to see that
when they eventually get around to it. Yeah, but there's something else about that, right? And it's the situations in the game that don't lend themselves to close range combat very well. And I think that for us, for you two, and for me, I mean, we're a neutral, non-aligned group now. We're pirates these days, but we've been in faction warfare for 2 years. Is battlefields.
Mm-hmm.
Battlefields in a fleet situation really kind of force you
long range
90% of the time to you've got to fit for long range. You've got to fit that for that flexibility. I mean, the most obvious battlefield comp up here in the north and down there in the south is the heavy missile cyclone fleet issue.
Yep.
It's come to define fleet combat in battlefields. There are some other comps out there. Some of the Galente down here use some rail Navy Megathrons. They get a tracking bonus, so that's nice. But the go-to is heavy missiles in these things, and boating around at 1.5 to 2 kilometers a second.
Yep, the Navy Drake.
And that's getting a bit stale, isn't it? That's getting a bit stale. Yeah, I mean, you guys, you have done and you do use the Prophecy Navy issue, but really, that wouldn't be possible if it wasn't for its range bonus.
Yep. No, it's definitely something that you gotta. I mean, there is a certain level of, like, it would be nice to be able to brawl, but at a certain level of fleet. My problem with brawling in large fleet combats, especially with battlefields, is that the battlefield is usually huge. You know the warp-in point, and that's great.
Yep.
But unless you have everybody really good at, like, grabbing lots of targets, even if they warp in with 30 people and they get 20 of them away from you, and you're lucky to catch 10. You're probably going to catch like 5 or 3. And if they get away from you, you're short range, they're long range, you're fucked.
Yep.
It's the end of the fight. You get 3 people and you get to warp out, and that's it.
Let's imagine. I mean, what kind of things would you guys change in battlefields to make them more close range suitable? Something I do is, obviously I would move everything a bit closer together on the inside. The capture points, the warp in points.
Yeah, I would say the warp ins have to be either
I think
one or two.
Yeah, I think the real thing that would help in there is if there was a cloud that was capping your lock range to something like 50 kilometers, something like that. I mean, if you can get people to within 50 kilometers, then typically it's not necessarily easy, but it becomes a lot more viable to be in a comp that can close that distance.
Yeah.
And I think that would go a long way to encouraging battlefields because battlefields, obviously, they're intended to cause organized fleet fights.
Although I really think that CCP dropped the ball when they were thinking about that, because they made defense and offensive rewards, so that if you got a defensive plex or defensive battlefield that spawns inside of a non-contested, like 5% contested defense for you. It's just, why even go? Besides maybe PvP, but there's no incentive for you to go for the LP at all. There's no LP incentive whatsoever. And you could spend now you can spend an hour and a half trying to complete that objective that doesn't do anything at all besides maybe get you a fight, and that's a big maybe. Like,
well, what we were very much incentivized when we were part of Sedition living in Vlil. We were very incentivized to run defensive battlefields because of the quite large control percentage it would give you. It's a superplex, right? It's not giving you 0.1% control, it's giving you like sometimes 3% control. And we were able to, as compared to the Caldari in that time zone, as a arguably better organized group that had doctrines that we had ready and we could get into so that we were functional as a coherent fleet, we would go and do those even if the payout was negligible, because it was worth doing it for clawing back some of that control against the otherwise unstoppable tide of farmers, right? So if you're trying to play faction warfare as a PvP game, which regrettably not half of the people here are, doing a battlefield just for the sake of control and the hope of a fight is very viable still.
I think that it still happens. I just see multiple times that I've seen people be like, "Oh, that's over in Tantalin. It's at 5% contested. Why the fuck would we go there?" Like, I don't care. Let them. It doesn't matter because they're not pushing. Also, it depends on, is it like when you're fighting over Vivalier, that's very different. Back in the day when there was a big fight over Vivalier, there was a fight over Vivalier. You're trying to live in that system. And then that's already an incentive to do it no matter what. Like, you're trying to hold down that system, you're trying to protect it. But for the most part, unless you're trying to live somewhere, there's no reason to own space. Like, I mean, we could have the entire war zone fall tomorrow, and I would be fine. I'd be okay. I can dock in Indo-Dixie, I can dock in Hades. I can dock in Old Man Star. I can go out and fight. And in fact, that's fine. I'll just undock and fight because that's it. So 0 systems controlled by Galente means no damage to me personally.
Well, I mean, and I think I share that view as well. Until about a month ago, we were part of Caldari because we wanted to have PvP-centric enemies. So
Galente a little bit more
because
PvP.
I could kill you without gate guns.
Yeah, and I think that we're on the kind of same page that what we're looking for is PvP. Straight, it's as simple as that. Some people a lot of people in faction warfare, and I think that this is a good thing. They engage it. They get most of their motivation to go out and try and PvP. They get that from wanting to own territory in faction warfare. They need the ante to spur them to want to PvP. And it's one of the reasons that we were in faction warfare for 2 years, is that faction warfare was providing this challenge essentially to the enemy. We've flipped sides a couple of times. It was providing this challenge to the enemy. On the one hand, 2 people show up in space, and a lot of the time in EVE, one or the other or both won't really feel like fighting the other person. You get into faction warfare and they're a faction warfare enemy. There's now this flag that they've picked up that makes the other person want to go, hey, screw them, I'm going to go and try and fight them, right? And
very true.
It doesn't really feel true that you two or we require the other person to have this flag.
No.
To want to go fight them. We'll go fight them anyway, but
a lot of people do it helps a lot of other people, though. Absolutely.
Yes. It really did. It really did. We left faction warfare because we believe at this current moment we can get more fights if we're out of faction.
You can fight everybody.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. Yeah. No, and can you tell us a little bit? How did Blue Canary start? What was this? How can you tell us a little bit about the history and how, because you run Blue Canary, is that correct? You're the dictator.
Yes. I mean, you know, to just address that, you know, is like there is no functional democratic group in Eve. There's no such thing. Groups.
But the Northern Coalition existed for 6 years by being a democratic society that fell apart because they were a democratic society. And never mind. Anyways, continue.
Yeah, you know, a lot of people and CCP themselves likes to lean into these comparisons with real life. But if we're being honest, this is a video game, so a lot of real life motivations don't work in a video game. You know, in real life, you are to a large extent stuck in your country with your government. In EVE Online, you can just leave if you don't like it. So the best groups have.
You can tell people to leave if they don't like it. It's just you could say that. That's about all.
Oh, what I mean is they can leave their corp if they don't.
Yeah,
like
in real life, you can only tell people that you can just leave.
Oh dear. Yes, so yeah, I'm the dictator of Blue Canary. I started Blue Canary because of the options at the time. There wasn't anywhere that was being led in a manner that I was wanted to be a part of. And one of the key things that I've always led this group by is there are a number of key things, but one of the most important ones is I don't want to bat phone or be a bat phone. And I define that as I don't want to enter a temporary truce with another group for the purpose of so that I can win this fight. Because I believe that
very rare actually for a group your size.
Yeah, I mean we've been getting bigger, so that helps us to you know, be able to take on things that other groups, smaller groups, would need to band together. I mean, most recently in Caldari, we banded together with a couple of other corporations, including Corvus's group, to be able to form coherent fleets quickly to take on larger fleets. But they were Caldari militia. We had similar aims. What I wouldn't want to do is, for example, partner. I'm gonna pick them as a non-obvious answer here because this doesn't work if you try and use it in real life. But to avoid naming any other group, for example, I don't want to partner with Snuffed Out to assist them in a fight or to have them assist me in a fight. I don't want that association, because the thing about bat phoning, and this works at small and very large levels, is that if you do it once, the enemy will calculate that into their risk for everything afterwards as well. If people are going to see our alliance, watch this, you know, with Blue Canary and with Starline Enterprises, if they see that when they see us appear, they can expect it's just us to appear, it helps them to be a bit less scared, and that helps us get a fight, you know. I'm sure that you've both been part of groups where your enemy has said, hey, you did this once 7 years ago, so that's what you're just going to do this time, so we're not going to fight you. And it's completely unreasonable. And there's a lot of very unreasonable thinking in this game when it comes to risk avoidance. But that's one of the core principles of Blue Canary that, you know, I want to adhere with. And that extends to, we have tackled a dreadnought somewhere and we're unable to break it, right? I'd rather not get the kill than call somebody unrelated to come and do it for us, you know. I'd rather
maybe hold them long enough that somebody else does come without you calling them, but that's not your fault.
Yeah, I mean, so. that happened. That happened just a couple of days ago, right? We tackled a Galente Phoenix on the iHub in Indragul, and started shooting it, and then obviously a recon decloaked and a lot of snuffed out came in and we ran away. You know, we're going to give it a try, but we're not going to partner with another unrelated group at all. And you know, I say unrelated group, when we were in the Caldari, we would work with some select Caldari groups that we judged were on the same page in terms of doctrines and readiness, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now that we are an independent group, we are not going to be teaming up with another group in the heat of the moment to score a kill or to be able to blob something. We're perfectly capable of blobbing a lot of things by ourselves.
Right. So
You know?
when did you get when did you build Blue Canary? How did that all start off?
Well, I found myself corpless after a very, what's the right word here? I'm going to find the right word here. It was an unceremonious leaving of snuffed out.
Oh, okay.
After I rage quit. I mean,
that worked.
These days I have a reasonably cordial relationship with snuffed out. It's all fun and games, you know. But I had wanted something that had a different purpose and a different set of self-imposed rules, things we would and wouldn't do, and it didn't exist, so I had to make it.
Okay, yep.
And that's where we are currently. I'm not running Blue Canary because I want to run a corporation. I'm running Blue Canary because I want there to be a certain attitude towards PvP and have other people who are sharing that similar attitude to it. Now, obviously, that does come with decreeing certain things. That's what the leader of any group in this game does. They make decisions, and that's how it is. But I very much hope that the other people that I do lead this corporation and the alliance with, I do hope that they feel I do listen to their point of view about things. But people are in this corp because we share the same philosophy when it comes to PvP and how we want to conduct ourselves.
So was Sedition the first alliance that you joined after building up your corporation for a bit, or what? Is there a decent amount of history before going to Sedition? Because I've known about you guys since you got to Sedition, and that's when I started learning about you more. But I don't know if there's any history that comes before that.
Yeah, we had initially been a part of UCSC.
Okay.
In the opening months of Blue Canary. I have we had some good times with them, but it wasn't progressing us in the direction that I wanted us to go. Later on, we created our first own alliance called the Birdhouse, and we moved down to Minmatar space for a few months. We partnered with Sons of Luminaire, a previously Galente corp, and we met a lot of good people there. Some of them joined us after we sort of consolidated and joined Sedition as well. We had a good time with those guys, but the location wasn't really pushing us where we wanted to go. We joined Sedition, and we've really got a huge boost. I very much like to think that we had really, given a lot back to Sedition at the time in terms of content generation as well. We had a good time there. I don't think that we've really been part of a group that hasn't been anything but a positive time.
Great to hear.
And right now we've flip flopped between militias a few times, and we do that because we just want to always be where we think our type of PvP is going to be the best. And that has resulted in us now not being in faction warfare, but
you're corp loyalists. You're not faction loyalists.
Yeah, and this is essentially my first time since the introduction of faction warfare back in like 2009 or whenever it was when faction warfare was first released. This is my first time in faction warfare where I've got to know the other groups in faction warfare, and something that I've noticed is this loyalty to the faction, and that's great, because that is a content creator to have that kind of loyalty.
I have never been on any. I've been tempted to maybe check out the Mimitar Warzone and even tried to make an alt for it, but then I just am like, nah, I'm gonna fly with the Glente. That's what I've been doing since they fucking won a faction warfare. This is where I come back to. This is where I'm gonna be. Like, these are my boys. Like, I know some of the ancient fuckers. Like, I'm one of the ancient fuckers now. Like, I'm like,
we got. It's like we got. It's something that I have found that is endlessly entertaining and frustrating and fascinating, is something that the loyalty to your faction for some players has generated, which is insane conspiracy theorizing.
Oh, CCP fucking hates Galente. Fucking hates us, man. Don't listen. They won't. We've been running this podcast for 3 years. I have talked to them multiple times about coming onto this podcast. I have gotten them before we were a Galente podcast. I have gotten CCP Swift to be in an interview on a Crossing Darkness, World of Darkness podcast where he came over and talked about stuff, but they won't come on to a Galente podcast. They won't.
I was in Iceland at a doner kebab place, and we were eating dinner with CCP Aurora, and I thought we had a really good conversation. We was talking about Magic the Gathering and a few other things, and after that, Night Flyer, had assured us perhaps that maybe she would be on, but no.
So conspiracies, man. No, just truth. That's what we're telling you. But it is kind of fucked up that there's 3 times as many farmers on the Caldari, and they have better LP than we do. They're making
there's a number of things.
That's kind of
there's going to be a number of reasons, and some of the reasons that I've seen for that is there's so many wildly different reasons why Caldari traditionally, repeatedly seems to, indeed does have a lot more exclusively farming focused people joining it, right? And I think
that makes sense.
First and foremost is that people want the Caldari LP rewards.
Yes,
across
the
the rest of the game.
Phoenix Navy issue is epic. People love their Drake.
A lot more people want a Navy Drake than they want a Navy Brutix. Not to say that the Navy Brutix isn't in demand, but there's a lot more
in demand
for a lot more of them.
The Drake.
The Phoenix is.
The Phoenix is huge in 0.0. That's what everybody fucking wants. Yep, the Scorpion Navy issue is epic. Like, it's. I mean, it's conspiracy, but it's true too. Now, one thing I do want to get real quick is we do have a question from the audience here. Mortal asks, do you think that dreads are useless now versus carriers due to the new carriers' 250 JMD range as well as the booshing ability that they have? Before I want to get your input here, I'm just going to say real quick that I don't. To be honest, a carrier takes 30 seconds to land on grid. The moment that it lands, you know that it's going to try and boosh you. You just scram it, and then you've stopped booshing. You've stopped MJD.
Yeah.
There will be very unique situations that it will be awesome. Is this going to change the war zone? Absolutely not. Conduiting, kind of cool. Now carriers can carrier stuff. But what's your feeling on the new carrier stuff?
Well, it's partially similar to that. Like, these things have a spool, and in organized fleets, it is not overly difficult for people to scram the much smaller signature and much faster spooling command destroyers as it is right now. People are aware of the risk that they pose, and they take effort to minimize or cancel that. I think that that's going. I mean, people are going to. This is going to be like a 4 to 5 billion-isk boosher to remove a small number of dreads from their current position, right? I think that this is probably going to see most of its use in wormholes, if anywhere at all.
I can see that. Booshing faxes, I can see that happening, because faxes are much less likely to have a scram. But still, it's got to be small gang, like really small gang, because as soon as you see that carrier, you're like, get a prig, scram that thing.
I question whether whether most small gang situations are going to be viable for them to be putting somebody in a carrier in the first place, and not just through cost or SP, but because I'm sure that they'll find something more useful that they'd rather that pilot be in. I think it's going to see niche use, and on top of that, the most obvious elephant in the room: who's using dreads in faction warfare anyway?
It's very rare.
Very rare in faction warfare. 0.0 very common though. There's a lot of dread stuff going on in 0.0.
Yeah, I think that what we are going to see is organized, properly organized groups that have doctrines and encourage people to be ready in those doctrines for fleet purposes. I think that we could see fairly frequent use of the conduit. We certainly are planning to use it to move fleets.
So Mortal says that it's regular scram will not stop it. I don't believe that's true. I just want to
let's look it up.
Throw that out there. Yeah,
because you can scram a carrier.
No, he's talking about that the boosh won't be stopped by a scram. From my understanding is that it's the same as the regular booshers, that it doesn't need to be a heavy interdictor or anything like that.
Let's have a look.
He's saying that it needs to be a scripted heavy interdictor. I think that a regular old scram will stop these things.
Place your bets, everybody.
If it is true that it needs to have a heavy interdictor, that changes everything. That's huge, because you don't have a heavy interdictor sitting next to all of your dreads, right? And the scram heavy interdictor is a much shorter range than what you would have. Well, not shorter range than regular. It's actually longer range than the regular scram. But it's you only have so many heavy interdictors that you have chilling out with your group here. But I'm 90% sure. I'll leave a good solid 10% there that a regular scram won't work. But I'm 90% sure.
So expansion notes. Both modules, the jump and the jump field generator, both modules can be stopped by warp scramblers and scripted heavy interdiction warp disruption field generators. So it does list vanilla scramblers separately to hick points in there.
Yep, so that's what kills it. If you can just throw a scram on a dread, like a dread will still be able to lock up the carrier before it can boosh. And so all you need to do is add a scram to a dread, or just an Atron that sits next to your dreads, and you're good.
Yep. So the expansion note does specify warp scramblers, and it specifies them separately to hick points as well. So according to CCP, a regular scram will cancel the spool on this. So we'll see. I believe it's worth noting that it says scripted heavy interdiction. Heavy interdictor warp disruption field generators. So that should mean that the long script, not just the short scram script,
and the bubble as well.
Cancel it. Yes.
So the bubble doesn't work. The long script doesn't work, but short scram will work.
No. I believe that the long disruption script does also cancel it.
Oh.
Because it just says scripts.
Yeah, it just says scripted. It doesn't say scram scripted.
That's a good point.
Now, I believe that that's the same case for stopping all forms of micro jump.
Okay, yep.
Not just on caps.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
One of my directors has just messaged me and says that long warp points on Hicks does stop command destroyers from booshing as well.
So then, I'm pretty sure that would translate over there using probably the same code.
Yeah, and I get that. That sounds fine. Yeah.
But and I mean, if it was the other way around, then I would be impressed. If it was that you could only do it with a hick, I would be like, oh, well, fuck, man, everybody's getting booshed all day long by carriers, because that's going to be, but since that's not the case so far, then it's really, I don't think it changes up things a lot. It makes for an interesting use cases. There's one fax that's healing a bunch of fucking things that you want to boost, and it booshes 250, which makes it warpable. See, that's the other thing that people are like, oh, 250, that's awesome. I don't know, in Dead Space, maybe you're right. That's kind of cool, because then you can't warp on top of it.
Yeah.
But if it's not Dead Space, then, well, who gives a fuck? I'll just warp to you.
Just warp to it,
Maybe, in fact, I can look it up, because I'm in-game now. Let's have a look. Capital micro, because rather unusually, there's a capital MJD and a capital field generator MJD, rather than just giving them the field one. Like with command destroyers, there isn't a jump drive, but there is an AoE jump drive on there. I'm just comparing the attributes on the two to see if they've got like a different spool up time or something like that. Activation time 12 seconds. Activation time
seconds. That's so long.
So the jump drive is 12 seconds. The jump field generator is 10.
Okay, but still 10 seconds, man. That's
is interesting.
It's
interesting to me that the more capable one
is shorter.
Is shorter. Yeah, I'm just double checking. Yeah, it's the same jump distance as well. I'm trying to think why you wouldn't fit the jump field generator.
Only thing I can think of is if you want to do jumping around without taking people with you. Because a carrier does want to sit out at 250 sometimes to throw their fighters at 250 and be safe, quote unquote.
Yeah. It's got slightly higher power grid and CPU requirements, but nothing overly major on those. 10 kilometer AoE range, and it can take up to 50 people with you.
And that's pretty decent, because the size of your ship kind of influences that bubble. So a giant, a big ass fucking carrier, 10 kilometers around a big ass carrier is much different than an Atron with 10 kilometers around it. So you can take a good chunk. It's interesting. I like it. Speaking of like different changes and stuff like that, just in general, what do you think of this new expansion? I mean, it just dropped. Do you have any feelings on this expansion? Any specific things that you think were important or were stupid?
Well, for the past 4 years, my number one issue that I feel has needed desperately addressing in EVE is the ability that Ansible X Gates gives to large groups. There's so many aspects to this,
and this was a stealth nerf to that. I feel like nobody really knew that was going to get nerfed until it actually came out.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. Yeah, and we will know, I believe, on Thursday what it does to the existing routes that the large groups have set up using their Ansible X Gates. If indeed it has essentially severed the ability for them to stack everybody in one central system and yet have 15-minute access 2 or 3 regions away, if it has ended that, then that is the problem fixed. It may allow them to do fast shortcuts within their own, where they live, but if they've got rid of that, then one of the biggest issues in the game will have been fixed.
Yeah, no, the ability to just transport across 5 regions, if you own 5 regions and you can get it done in 10 jumps to 5 regions, that's pretty fucking stupid. But if now you've got to break it up, you've got to reevaluate where, this is a big thing on this, is that I feel like this has turned the game into much more of a 4X strategy for the super higher ups. Because before you just plop shit down and didn't fucking matter. You just took space. Yeah, moons kind of mattered a little, a lot throughout the history of EVE. But the whole idea of developing your space was really, each individual system is very unique and special and has these kind of this is how much power you get and stuff. And I'm sure they're going to tweak it here and there,
Yes,
because there is tweaking that needs to be done for sure. But I like it that you can't just throw everything into every system. You can't have one system that's the God King system. Or if you do, there's fucking like 3 God King systems or something like that I heard. There's not a lot of God King systems that they have an unbelievable amount of power, and they can put everything that they want down in that system. So you need to really be strategic.
Yeah, the other aspect away from projection through Ansiblex is indeed, they have made it so that there are, like you said, a very small number of systems where they can do a lot of things amazingly together. But generally speaking, the truth of the matter is, this has made them choose, right? Do you want it to be good at this, or do you want it to be good at this, rather than being good at everything? It has assigned a new type of geography that matters to solve nullsec space. And essentially, if there's been a lot of crying about this here. However, if tweaking may be required, if the end result is that your space, as a very large group, your space doesn't have enough systems to support the activity of all those people, if that's what it means, then essentially what that means is, okay, well, if you want to support that many people, go and fight to take some more space for them.
Yeah, and maybe you have to not have as many renters, because those renters are taking up some good space, or the renters are like, well, fuck renting, because this is a stupid fucking system and it doesn't do anything for us now. We need more to support we can't just say, all I need is one system for our 500 dudes, because we're fine as long as, time zone and stuff like that. We can maybe, 2 or 3 systems or whatever, but all of a sudden you reevaluate it, it's like, with 3 systems I get shit. Like, why am I paying billions of ISK a month? For
essentially, in an area of space that is supposed to be defined by war. Then, if there's no reason to go to war, then people aren't going to go to war.
Right.
And this goes back to what we said about people's affiliations and goals in faction warfare. Faction warfare does. Especially now, since over the last 2 years, it does make people who might not have fought before, it makes them fight now. And if that is the same effect that this has on people in nullsec, then it will have been a huge success. If people have a problem with the concept of there's more of you than there are the resources that you want, that's the point, right? Go to war. If you want to not have to fight for your resources, then go and mine some rubbish rocks in high sec, right? Oh, but it's not as profitable. Yeah,
that's point.
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
And quite frankly, get good.
Right. Adapt or die, motherfucker. This is
Now, I like you said, I will concede that, maybe there is some tweaking of the power output, or indeed just the cost of some upgrades, that might make this thing a bit more palatable. But the overall effect that CCP needs to maintain the balls to keep in the game, CCP needs to like hold their breath and make sure that however this ends up, tweaking or no tweaking, it makes people have to fight for the best territory.
Absolutely.
And it's going to be good for the game, and to people who are upset about that concept, a better game overall is going to be better for you as well, even if you feel this is currently unfair.
So does Blue Canary have any 0.0 ambitions at this time, or are you thinking that's a folly man's fool game?
We were always going to be in faction warfare, and we were always going to be in the Kaldari, then we were always going to be in Minmatar, then we were always going to be in the Galente.
So you're saying the Magic 8 Ball is saying unclear, check back later?
I mean, if the best PvP moves to for a group our size moves to nullsec, then we're gonna follow it to nullsec. If the best PvP again for our style becomes being a member of a faction warfare side, we're gonna join a faction warfare side again.
Apparently, Rocket says that you're going to be renting Catch.
Well, he, if he's doing these deals behind my back, then it wouldn't surprise me. He's the real hidden leader of the alliance.
Ah, the man behind the curtain. I see.
Yeah. We're gonna go rent. We're gonna rat to our heart's content and finally get away from these evil PvP gremlins.
Just chill out, relax for a little bit, do some farms and fields, go back to your roots, just like you wanted to do back in, when you originally started. You're just gonna go back to you want to mine and you want to industrial and become the guru of industrial. So
17 years of PvP, I've been just trying to desperately set the game up in a way that I can finally fly an obelisk.
Well, no, it's the new what is it? The new avalanche. It's an avalanche that.
That is a good-looking ship, isn't it?
What do you think about the new ships? Do you have any thoughts or comments on the new industrial ships that they released?
Real quick.
Oh yeah.
Day one, Spectre Fleet, we killed a squall right after they came out. It wasn't worth anything. Nice. It wasn't worth anything.
But that's not the point, is it? The point is that you got one of
the new ship.
Yeah. It was on a gate camp in Amazon, but go ahead. Sorry.
These I may be a PvPer through and through, but I can appreciate a good, useful industrial ship.
Absolutely.
I'm actually secretly a big fan of the Bowhead. I think that the Bowhead is one of the underappreciated ships in this game for moving your stuff around. One thing that I really want to advocate for is some buffs to the Bowhead. I would like to see it have a larger capacity to really turn it into the ship carrying ship that I think it should be. It's a great looking ship as well. I also think that there's room in this game for a jump bowhead, a T2 bowhead, with a third the capacity, but something to, because on the one hand, I think that projection in this game has been in a terrible overpowered state. On the other hand, I think that CCP has taken that away, or is looked to be taking that away. I think it's time for CCP to give something back, not projection, but deployment tools.
Okay.
And with the carrier being able to conduit up to 30 ships, I think that's a good move. I thought
it was 50. No, it's 30. You're right. It's Boosh is 50.
It's 30, yeah.
It's 30 for the conduit. Yep.
I think that I would like to see the carrier ship capacity increased to help people to deploy more often. I think that,
especially since the Dreads got carrier capacity, because remember when Dreads couldn't fit a ship, you couldn't put a ship inside of a carrier inside of a Dread. Now basically they're the same thing as a carrier. Why the fuck would you that kind of stuff? A little bit. It's just why did you just relegate carrier to shit? Come on! Kill its application, make it so that it's you can't carry your ships any different than a Dread. The new stuff though is kind of cool. So
until this expansion, there had been a lot of clamoring. First of all, that the carrier needed a purpose. Agreed, absolutely. And then people would latch onto that and demand essentially that it got its rollback as general DPS. And I am so glad that hasn't happened, because we already had carriers as general DPS that could just apply to virtually any ship, and they just became the unassailable new battleship.
Yeah, it was one of those things you would rat with it, you would PvP with it, you could do pretty much everything. If you were in 0.0, this was the ship that you needed to get into as soon as you possibly could, because it was so fucking good.
Yeah, to have something that has millions of EHP and at the low ends 1,000 DPS that could project hundreds of kilometers from your ship at several kilometers a second, and could hit frigates as well as it could hit cruisers and battleships as well. It was a hugely problematic design for carriers at the time. That's part of another discussion, really, because that goes back to why did CCP separate out reps from DPS and make two ships for it? Why did they make FACs when they should have just modified how the carrier worked for logistics?
You should have just had shittier application, but it was really, you'd use it as a logistics ship, maybe. You know, there's
because
some
the carrier shone obviously in triage mode beforehand, and then CCP took that purpose from them, leaving them purposeless. So they gave them general DPS, and then they were overpowered.
Yeah.
Like that. Is it? Anyway,
So-
that's a long rant.
Real
for another
quick
day,
from
but yeah.
chat here, we Rock and Rocket says Fant is a big baby who was too scared to move his jump freighter to high sec.
Have you
I didn't
seen
say
how
it.
terrifying high sec is?
It's terrifying. I can't go to high sec without all the cops yelling at me every time. Every time I go to Inspector Fleet and they're like, meet up in Jeddah, I'm like, fuck you. Where
can we meet other than that?
And then they'll be like, go to this system, and then I'll get there and they'll be like, oh fuck man, that wormhole closed. I need you to go like 20 jumps through high sec to get to the other system. Ah, fuck you.
I'm gonna stick with high sec is terrifying. I'm
gonna
stick with it.
Regardless of whether you're
I have jumped to Vargar through high sec while -10. That was really scary.
I mean,
somehow I lived.
Also,
only to lose it in a wormhole.
To what Rocket's saying there, unfortunately, if he wants me to use my jump freighter in high sec, then maybe he should stop being so useful with his and doing it all himself for the entire alliance.
Yeah.
There you go.
But yeah, these new industrial ships look pretty good. I mean, I know that there have been some knee-jerk gasps of horror when it was revealed that they can do a very respectable amount of damage.
From what I heard, the most thing they were terrified of was the tank. Like, especially, which is what they nerfed the living shit out of day 1 and kind of buffed a little bit more day 2. Was
they can be tanky ships.
You could just remove all the missiles and be like, fuck missiles, let's get some tank. And they were like, CCP was like, what? Yeah. People don't want to put missiles on a missile ship? Well, yeah, I want to have a tank. That's going to save me more than my missiles.
I assume that you're aware of, perhaps when we talk about the deep space transport, you're aware that the other 4 deep space transports, particularly 2 of them, can fit very vast amounts of effective hit points.
Oh yeah,
as it is anyway, right?
Yep.
But I mean, I don't fit mine like that because I'm using them to transport things, and they've got some tank on them, right? They've got an extender and some hardeners, but I'm not overly worried about a deep space transport getting to 250,000 EHP, because, like, okay, well, what else can it do while it's doing that? Great, it's a brick. I mean, it's not like they're fitting that full tank and a notably huge amount of DPS at the same time, right?
Right. Yeah. No, it's
so it's like,
it's a gimmick of cool, just trying to transport shit and
always take the bait.
But the thing is that CCP is actually receptive to people being whiny bitches. To be honest, like CCP has been receptive to whiny bitches. A very vocal minority can sway CCP to do stuff, and has and will continue to do that. And I think this is a clear example of that. That the gankers got mad. They were like, "I want to gank deep state transports." Like,
what's the what is the DST called? Is it the?
I fly the Akator.
Well, the new one, the new
Torrent.
One. The Torrent, yeah. Which is an interesting name because whenever I hear that, I'm like, wait, I'm downloading something. Wait.
Hey, you're downloading it from Jeddah.
So the Torrent, it has a similar fleet. It has a not too dissimilar fleet hangar capacity to a regular DST. It also has an infrastructure hold capacity, but that's very specific to the type of things that you can put in there. I mean, if the Suicide Gankers' complaint with this is that it's tankier than other DSTs, then okay, it's tankier than other DSTs. I mean, people are still going to be in high sec largely fitting this with inertial stabilizers and MWD and a cloak, right?
Right. Yeah, and also it's going to be its cargo hold sucks for me. So I deep space transfer it all the time.
It's about the fleet hangar. It's about the fleet hangar on DSTs.
So the thing is, the fleet hangar is smaller than a regular DST. It's got planetary interaction and dropping of structures, which is cool, but I don't fucking do that. I don't care about planetary interaction, and I don't care about any of the... I don't need fuel. I don't need any of this shit. So I personally am not using any of the new ships. I will not... I have an alt that is specific to hauling for me, and I won't use them, because my DST is already better. If I was going to get a freighter, I'm going to get a jump freighter. I'm not going to use a freighter for what I do because I'm a low sec bitch. So, and I can see how this affects other people and other stuff. For me personally, I think these are cool. I like the concept of what they are. It's kind of cool to if you could steal a bunch of, which I've heard is maybe not as cool as it sounds. But go steal a whole bunch of shit off these sky hooks, the materials that they make, and you get a fleet to go do that. That's kind of cool. I think they are cool. Personally, I'm not going to use any of the new ships that come out.
I mean, basically, if the as an example, if people who suicide gank lucrative targets in Uedama,
right,
are
which I go through all the time.
Yeah, if they're concerned that people are going to be tankier because they're flying a Torrent rather than an Okator, I mean, I'm still going to be flying an Okator.
Right, me too.
There, guys.
So stop bitching and whining. That's adapt or die.
It's a trade-off. It's a trade-off. If I would be flying the Torrent if I wanted to lean more towards this tank than capacity.
Right.
Right.
Yep, if that was more important. But I feel like I can get through Uedama pretty well. Like there's certain times of the year that it's really stupid to go through Uedama, like 90% drop. Just avoid that. But it's like that's like what, a week or two, maybe a month, whatever. Just don't go there then. Other than that, don't go during super high prime time. Maybe
or just scout it.
Scout it a little bit. You could do that. To be honest, I don't scout. I just go. Whatever. I mean, if I lose, but I also don't transport more than probably like 2 billion ISK is like the most my DST is going to have in it. And if I lose that, it's like, oh, that sucks. But whatever. Move on.
I think we can probably tie a bow on it by saying, number one, we're still going to fly the same DSTs. So we're not going for extra tank as it is because of the trade-offs. And number two, it's not really... It's not ungankable.
No, it's definitely gankable. I think the avalanche is what people were complaining about most, and I think that got super nerfed into the ground, where it's not really going to be the ungodly tank that they thought it was going to be.
So if I look at the attributes for the avalanche, then let's have a quick look at it. It's got an infrastructure hold capacity, but that's not what we're really talking about. It's got a much smaller regular capacity than any other.
It's like less than a jump freighter, I think.
Base, yeah.
Yeah, base, yeah.
In fact, it doesn't have any bonuses to that anyway.
Yep.
It doesn't have any bonuses to its regular cargo hold capacity. Anyway, it has a bonus to its ship infrastructure.
I think it's a game changer for some, but not for the majority, and that's the thing is that some people are going to be able to get away with some hauling a lot. I think the original was you could haul like multiple keep stars in it, which was kind of epic. I think
you
still can, which is cool, but that's a sub fucking group, dude. Like that's not not the majority of people.
People, I'm going to say it now. There's going to be one person every 2 years who carries 3 keep stars through Uedama in a single avalanche. It is statistically, this is not happening. It's not going to happen.
Absolutely. So we have been going for a good amount here, but I wanted to make sure, is there anything specific that you wanted to talk about the past expansions or 0.0 or about LowSec that you wanted to go over before we hop off here?
There's an endless amount of topics in these that I love talking about. What I would say is that, to anybody who's watching who isn't yet taking part in PvP in low-sec, in and around faction warfare space, there is endless amounts of available PvP throughout all day, every day, whether you are a member of a faction or whether you are coming in as a neutral to pirate people. It is all available here. This is the best shape LowSec has been in for years. And if you liked it before, at both solo all the way up to fleet levels, now's the time. It's great. Come down here. You'll have a great time.
Awesome. Yeah. Is there anything that you'd like to advertise? Do you have a website? Any content creators that are inside of your corporation that you want to shout out to, or any general shout outs that you'd like to give at all?
We are always looking for more people who are focused on PvP to come and join our group. And we have a group of wonderful people. And, one thing that I think will demonstrate that is that we typically don't need to ping to form a fleet in our alliance. People just log in because they want to log in rather than are waiting for a ping. And I think that should say a lot about the kind of content that we're enjoying right now. Come and see us.
Awesome. Do you have a website that I can shout out to people at all?
We have a very basic website at BRDHS.net.
Awesome.
BRDHS.net.
Go ahead and shoot that over to me also in any form, and then we'll get that onto the show notes as well. Also, if there's any other things that you want us to put inside the show notes, let me know. And this has been really great. I think that to be honest, we've been talking for like an hour and 40 minutes now, and I feel like we've just got started, and I don't want to like end, but I feel like we're getting to that point where eventually we'd have to turn this into at least a 2-part, if not 5-part episode eventually. But this has been really awesome.
What would be cool in the future is, it'd also be great to come back and talk with maybe, some other people from the zone.
Oh,
so
yeah.
That we can get the different sides of the different views of it.
We could have a debate.
Debating, yeah, exactly. It'd be great.
Absolutely, yeah, I would love to have you back on. I think that this has been really epic. It's been great talking to you, and it's great meeting you because, like, you are a little bit of a legend in our area, to be honest. The ability to drop, dreads. You've got balls. You want to play. You have fun, and you've made your presence known in Yvangir. Since we moved there, it was very quiet, and now it is very loud, and that's okay, because it's time to have fun, right?
Thank you.
Yeah, I do want to say that you've been a thorn on my side for the last few months. It's really annoying when you guys showed up and got in my... No, I'm just fucking with you guys.
It's true. That's a little bit true.
It's a little bit true. Shut up, Frozen. But I did pour out just to cheers to you. This is a really nice bottle of Hakushu 12 here. It's a very small bottle, but I wanted to cheers and thank you for coming on. And it's lovely having you. Having the content is always available, right? Like, because like that's one of the things that I think that people don't realize about Eve is that. The people that get pissed off about rage quitting and stuff, it takes a while, right? If you've won Eve, fine, you've won Eve, whatever. But if you haven't won Eve, and you realize that the content comes from everything, and even when you get pissed off, because PvP, to an extent, is about mining salt, but it's also about community, and if those people that you've mined salt from decide to join you, or vice versa. Then you can mine salt together. that's just, cheers, and thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me very much.
Awesome. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap things on up here. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for hosting with me, Samson. Thanks, Phantomite, for coming on. And you're one of the few guests that I have actually got their fucking name right. So, because I am dyslexic idiot, and I don't even know why.
Well, you don't
I
have to
a
read
podcast,
it. I think it kind of everybody kind of knows the name.
It just flows out the mouth.
You don't need to read it. You don't have to look at the name and read it.
But yeah, thank you all for coming out here, and thank you all for listening, and have a great night.
Good night, New Eden.